By the looks of the parking lot at the Utah State Capitol, you would believe that it's not the 2021 legislative session. Hi, I'm Chad Booth. Welcome to the county seat. Today we are going to take a look at what changes have taken place and how access for the public in the rule and the legislative making process has changed. It starts by how you get in the door. You got to have a mask, you got to social distance, and for Pete's sake, don't be sick. So let's make our way through and find out about how changes in the legislature have impacted the way people do business. Here, let me get that door for you. It's one thing that you'll see is different around the Capitol this year is that there are little signs anywhere there could be a line with the stay 6 feet apart. That's really the hardest part. However, that social distancing has affected all kinds of things that we're going to find out by talking to some state legislators. Representative Albrecht, how are you today?
I'm okay, Chad.
I appreciate you taking the time out of a rather, I'm sure, more frenetic pace trying to make up for not having personal interaction. Tell me about how 2021 is different than 2020 for you as a state legislator.
2020 was great because I got to interact with county commissioners, mayors, constituents every day, visit with them. It was more hectic, I would say, but 2021, it's almost like, who can I visit with? You know, if somebody wants to make an appointment with me, it's either Zoom call, text, telephone, email, or once in a while they'll come to my office. But it's not the personalized session that we're used to.
How much do you think that is an important part of making good policy?
Where the Capitol is as vacant as it is, and we're doing business kind of in a vacuum, yeah, you can hear from people on Zoom and all the other things I mentioned, but to look them in the eye and talk to them about their issues, I miss that. And I think sometimes we may go on our merry way passing a bill without the proper input.
If you're in a hearing and you're trying to persuade fellow legislators in the hearing about a point of view and you've got this public comment period going on, is it different when it's 12 little boxes on a screen as opposed to a dozen people that show up in mass as one group?
As I conducted my public utilities committee the other day, there was a lot of public comment on various bills. And I think sometimes more so than in person. When you're in person, some people think, well, so-and-so will cover that for me, and I'm a little reticent and I don't want to get up on the witness stand. But over the computer on Zoom, they'll do it. And I found out that we sometimes have more public comments that way. But the personal interaction is not there.
Did the legislature get involved in improving the process of getting into the Capitol for?
Yes, we did. This week, with the Capitol being more open, I've got some appointments this afternoon with county commissioners and others that I'll have, and I look forward to that. You know, we are conducting the business of the people, and we're one of the few states that's meeting, and one of the few states that balances our budget, and so on and so forth. Utah is a pretty great place in spite of the way we're operating, but I miss the good old days.
So would you encourage people, if possible, if they feel that it's safe for them to come up and engage in person?
Yes, it is safe. Come and engage with us.
Thank you for joining us, Representative Schultz.
Happy to be here, Chad. Thank you.
How are we coping with how different this approach is as far as interaction with constituencies?
Yeah. Oh, it's significantly different, Chad. As you mentioned, last year it didn't really affect us. We saw it all kind of building up during the session. Almost really the day after we got out of session, it really did explode, and we likely would have shut down the legislature last year had it not, had it been maybe 3 or 4 days sooner. And so luckily we were able to get through last session. Everybody obviously knows how 2020's been. or 2020 was. This year, 2021 legislature, it was important for us to get open and allow as much access to the Capitol and interaction with the elected officials as possible.
Administratively, was there a difference of opinion about how this should work as far as the executive branch and the legislative branch?
You know, we were able to come together and really, I want to say it was a very collaborative process with the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and certainly the Governor. And I think they came up with something that works. I don't think, you know, as you look at how it all came together as a whole, I don't think anyone would agree on everything. But surprisingly, it's worked really well.
Is there part of it that's gotten better because we're doing things differently?
There is. I think, you know, I think every representative or every senator may be approaching things a little bit different. I'm still trying to have as many face-to-face meetings as I possibly can. I think that's important, and I believe in that. There's times when the Capitol was closed, I went off Capitol to meet with some people face-to-face. Certainly, most of our communication's done by phone and stuff still, and always has been, even when we were able to meet face-to-face. But you talk about some things getting better. Right now, people have the option to come to the Capitol, but then they also have options to participate via Zoom or the internet. That's changed significantly. Just example, we've have you know, someone along the Wasatch Front to attend a committee hearing is not that big of a deal. A couple hours out of your day, 2-3 hours a day, come up to the Capitol and attend a committee hearing. For someone in rural Utah, it's an all-day process. Sometimes maybe even a longer by the time they drive both ways, spend, you know, half the day at the Capitol. Now with Zoom and being able to get on through the internet, you can participate from your house, your home, or, you know, your office, you know, all across the state.
There's always a feeling that, you know, when it's a Zoom issue, you don't have the chance to, you know, have your hand be seen. You know, it's just like, do they really see me? Is the audience really hearing what I'm saying when you try and participate? Does that affect people's perception of how effective this system might be?
Well, I think I just want to say there's two options, right? You can still come to the Capitol, or you can participate by Zoom, via Zoom. I can tell you that I was in a committee yesterday. I presented the bill. There were more comments from people online than there were in the audience. And not everybody got called on. You know, we had over an hour of public comment on the bill as it was. There were still people in the audience that wanted to speak that didn't get a chance, and there were still people online that didn't get to speak. So I would say the effectiveness, I don't think, has changed. But if you feel like your voice isn't being heard over the internet, then you still have the option to come to the Capitol.
We're going to take a break on the county seat right now. When we come back, we are going to move from one chamber to the next, from the large to the small. And we will continue our conversation about your access and how the legislative process works in this extraordinary year. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to the county seat. We are continuing our conversation with elected officials about access and functioning of the state legislature. It has a receiving end and a beginning end. You've got counties and you've got legislators. How much difference is there in the way that senators are reacting in their smaller body as opposed to the legislature? Is this a harder way to navigate the session from personally?
It is. It's really challenging. Now, as we're in the Senate chamber on the floor debating in that, we do have some members that are at home, but we haven't found that it's been difficult for them. They're involved just as much as being on the floor.
Do you think that some of the changes you've had to make are going to be changes that you keep going forward?
I think so. One thing that we did as a legislature, they got us Zoom accounts so that we could actually reach out and do that. And so that option is very readily available for us to use for our constituents. And so, you know, again, for my district, which is, you know, 200 miles out to the farthest part, and that makes that travel bearable. I mean, they just need to sit down at their computer or at their phone, and we'll talk to them, and it's face-to-face that way.
Do you find that within your district there is actually more engagement because people can remotely come in, or do they still have trouble finding out about it?
I think it's just new enough that we're still having to educate them. You can participate. Here's what it is. I had a call the other day, and they just watched the news, and they thought that it was still closed. They couldn't come. They wanted to participate. After walking them through that, they were very happy knowing that, yeah, they could participate. So I think we're going to probably do both. And I don't want to see the Zoom part go away as far as I like interaction with those I represent.
Do you find more people are engaged?
Yes, right now I would say that I have more engagement this year than in past years.
What do people need to do to get involved in the process? This may be an opportunity for people who go, oh, I don't want to drive all the way down there. I don't know what I'm doing, and you know, I like to be curious, but it's just too much headache. Do you think, you know, how do you tell them to get involved?
Well, if they would go to the state website and go to the legislator side, then you can click on there. You can look at the committees. You can find the bills. If there's bills that you want to follow, go down to that and click on it and track it. And it'll also let you know when those bills are coming up to committee. That's when the people actually have an opportunity to have input. And so the committees are the important part of this. And then, again, if you're hearing something you don't like about a bill, I like them to reach out and tell me why they don't like the bill or that they do support it for this reason. And then if we don't get it in the committee, then we follow up on the floor and ask
Do
them.
you have to be an expert to be able to give input on a bill?
No, they do not. That's what's nice about this. We're not a full-time legislature. We all have jobs, and so when this is all over, we go back to the real world, and I want the input from those people still working every day while we're here.
So you come out of county government, and you got county government officials that are used to coming up here and doing some serious, rather detailed negotiating. Has that been affected by this?
Just only that you either do it by phone and text, email, something like that, but it's still going on. It's just not the personal touch that they're used to in the past, but we haven't eliminated it at all.
You still find that the input is as valuable as it used to be from them?
Yes, it is. And we do reach out, especially to the elected officials, our sheriffs, those elected officials that maybe be a clerk or recorder, assessor. Each one of them have their associations, and they actually have the working knowledge of how those bills affect their departments. And so, yeah, I look forward to having input on those things. I'm not the expert in everything.
Senator Fillmore, certainly nice for you to take time to talk to us today.
Yeah, good to be with you, Chad.
So, 2021 is way different.
Said the man wearing the mask in the Capitol.
Yes. Do you feel overall this is a setback, or do you think it's just a different way of approaching things?
It probably is just a different way of approaching it. You can see some advantages. Meetings tend to be shorter now. But I miss the people. Like, the interactions are really valuable here. And I think it's hard to overstate the value that comes from walking down the hallway and finding an advocate who needs to talk to you about a piece of legislation that is going to be up in an hour or two. And I don't really know how we're going to replace that, right? We're maybe not quite to that point in the session when things start moving that fast, but I really do worry about going into bills being not as informed as we typically are by advocates. But so far, we've had a lot of Zoom meetings and a lot of phone calls, and I'd say maybe it's probably exceeded my expectations from that standpoint. But I still have worries for how it's going to work once things, really start moving more quickly.
A couple of legislators in our interviews today have said that they feel like that there are more people participating in numbers just because of who comes on to Zoom calls, but that they feel that the quality of interaction, it does not help them understand the situation or the intensity of it. Do you think that plays a role?
I think that's true. It's a good observation. Certainly I think we have more people attending our committee hearings, but it doesn't appear to me that we have more people participating. I just mean, making public comment, and contacting their legislator. it's great that people can attend online. I think that's more convenient for citizens, so that's a big win. And parking up here is a lot easier, which is probably another win. But you really do notice a difference, and anybody who's been in a Zoom meeting knows there's a difference, right? Between being in a room sitting across from people or talking like you and I are now, this would not be as interactive even if we were on Zoom.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's the case. Do you feel this puts like counties, particularly rural counties, at a disadvantage or a plus?
I mean, rural counties have the advantage of being able to make it up here on shorter notice with electronic means. But yeah, there's just no substitute so far anyway for the personal interaction that I miss. If I were to advise rural counties, I know like the Rural Caucus is having another meeting tomorrow morning, but it's, getting 200 people inside that room to really debate the issues, it just can't happen this year. And that's, the quality of just the interaction on Zoom, on those remote meetings is just not as good. And you don't get the same depth of understanding and the same varying perspectives for as much as it's a pain to have people shout and talk over each other, in a real meeting. We waste a lot of time saying, unmute yourself.
As I've gone through some of these meetings, is that everybody waits their turn, and sometimes somebody just wants to jump right on and add something, and it changes the understanding of an issue instead of waiting.
Yeah.
Do you think that we are in a better spot than we were 2 weeks ago as far as public and county access?
Oh yeah, having the Capitol open is a big improvement. I'm so glad that you and I can talk inside this building. We were supposed to meet earlier in the day. The schedule didn't quite allow it, but here we still are, just right upstairs from my office. So it was pretty convenient. We were able to put this together in 2 minutes, where it would have taken 2 hours or 2 days to do it if we were trying to arrange a Zoom call around all the other Zoom calls on a schedule. So I'm really glad that the Capitol is back open and that people can come and we can have face-to-face conversations again.
How are you compensating for that lack of spontaneity? You're spending just more time to do one-on-one on, how do you do that?
Yeah, we're scheduling a lot more time interaction on the phone and over the internet, and a lot more time trading emails.
Just to make a point how different it is this year, we are in the main foyer of the Capitol. In a regular year, you and I couldn't have this conversation because of the noise of all the lobbyists coming up from the floor below, and they aren't here. We'll continue our conversation on the county seat. We'll find out on the county end how county governments are coping with the different rules and restrictions that face them right here on the county seat. Welcome back to the county seat at the Utah State Capitol. We are talking about access for the public during the legislative session and how isolated the senators and legislators might be. We have looked at that perspective, the challenges, the benefits, the ups and downs from their side of the equation. Now we want to take a look and see what kind of challenges this presents to county elected officials.
Last week it was kind of a shocking time for us because we were basically just shut out. So this week we've been able to come back up, and I can see that it's getting better, but we do need to have that interaction.
You could attend hearings and meetings by Zoom. It takes you, 4.5 hours to drive up here at the speed limit?
It would be much easier to sit down there and take it easy and get on the Zoom meeting and not come up. That would be much easier. Give me a lot more time. But that's not my job. My job is to work for the people of Garfield County and be as effective as I can be.
Is there anything of value that's come out of this? Do you see there any tools or things that you think actually...
I think that some meetings should absolutely be a Zoom type setting. That's fine. I think that's great. I think that's a huge savings. But it's critical for these important things that, 45 days is all you have to make your point. Put your point across. And if you don't come up here and look these guys in the eye and tell them, this is what's going on, it's not as effective. The only way that your voice is going to be effective is if you come up here and take the time and develop the relationships and make your voice heard. Otherwise, you're just another rural county that nobody even knows.
Commissioner, it's a great opportunity to have a moment to talk to you because you're new. So you don't have a legislative session to compare this to, and so that's an interesting perspective. What do you think of the way sausage is made in 2021?
Well, for me, this is a whole new process. I'm learning a little bit, so I'm really glad to be able to learn and be here. I mean, to be able to see some of the things that are being discussed, the dialogue that's there. And you know, I think as we get down the road here, things will get better with regards to, you know, the pandemic that we're in. I think as a new county commissioner, there's a lot of stuff I didn't really know about. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that affect our counties, our cities, our state, that people just don't know about. So I would encourage people to get involved, call your legislators, be involved with the policy making, and just learn some things on your own to understand the process.
So as a health practitioner in your other role, is that human body expression element an important part of communicating your level of interest in pursuing something for your county or your constituents? Do you think that plays a role?
Yes. You know, certainly as a healthcare provider, you know, you have to have some physical connection and, you know, examinability on some things to make a difference in that decision process. So, and as a county commissioner, I think it goes the same way. I think you have to have some connection, although you sometimes have to adjust with different scenarios that we're dealt with, and we do that. But there's still some connection that has to happen.
Commissioner, very well expressed. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us as well on the county seat. The legislative process will be going on. It's a short session, 45 days, but if you feel that you need to participate in the process, that is available to you, and you should. Make your way up to the Capitol or make your way online and be part of the solution. Remember, local government is where your life happens. Be more than a bystander. Be involved. We'll see you next week on the county seat. Thank you for watching the County Seat. Be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications to keep up to date on the program and happenings around Utah.